Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new elite family of woods and irons from Callaway.
Bay Hill Club and Lodge, Orlando, Florida. Arnie first visited in 1965 for a charity exhibition. He liked the area so much that within a few years, he bought the property and he set up his southern home right here. Arnold Palmer Invitational is now a signature event. Golf course in superb condition and potentially difficult. Brief shower early this afternoon, but expected to get cooler, windier, drier, and firmer, just the way Arnie would have liked it. And hello again and welcome. I'm Rich Lerner. Brandel and Rolf joining me in a moment. Always wonder what Arnie would have thought about the events of the last few years, the split in golf. PGA Tour seems to have found its footing, but questions remain. Earlier today, Commissioner Jay Monahan joined me on set. Well, Jay, thanks for being with us. A lot of ground, obviously, to cover, but as you sit here, early March 2025, what has you excited about the PGA Tour?
Well, it's great to be with you, Rich, and there's a lot that has me excited about the PGA Tour, and I would just listen. We're here at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. It's always a tremendous honor to be in Mr. Palmer's backyard, and what's preceded our arrival here is just a really strong start to the season. With, if you look at how fans are responding to the changes that we've made to the tour, the innovations that we've provided, to be able to see double-digit increases in peak viewership, average final round viewership, to see the same with our international ratings and reach, to see some significant growth across our streaming platforms with Paramount Plus, with Peacock and ESPN Plus, and obviously to all of this is really, you got to look at fan engagement, and if you look at the amount of activity on social and the amount of positive activity on social, very encouraged by that. And, that's all great, but you have to ask yourself, what's the basis for that? And the basis has just been some extraordinary play. To have Hideki, Rory, and Ludwig win our first three signature events, to have, just look at the last 2 weeks, to have Joe Highsmith and Brian Campbell come forward and just in incredible fashion, great stories. The talent regeneration continues to be so strong. And we're blessed to have, a commercial, a partnership structure, a group of corporate partners that, when you look at it, we've got over 40% of our partners who've been with the PGA Tour for 15 years or longer, and they've, over the last couple of weeks, we've seen extensions that we're very grateful for in Valspar, 3M, and candidly, there's more to come.
Fans obviously want to know about a potential deal with the Public Investment Fund, which operates LIV Golf. As we sit here today, Jay, there is no deal. Are you aligned on vision, with details still to iron out, or are the sides struggling to align on vision?
Listen, I go back to last week's meeting in the White House, and first of all, we're very thankful and grateful to President Trump for hosting that meeting. And I would say that, if you look at the commentary coming out of it, we felt it was a very constructive meeting. The president himself commented on the fact that he's optimistic about a deal happening. Yasser himself said at the FII conference that he thought it was a good meeting. So, listen, it was a big step, and we're going to continue to move forward.
To what extent are you potentially sacrificing the interests of the PGA Tour for what President Trump might want or not want?
President Trump is, if you go back to his comments in November about the game needing to be, under one tour with all the best players in the world playing on that tour, the conversations with him have been focused on reunification. And for us, 70% of our fans, when polled, have said that they look at reunification positively. Our fans, we know, want the best players playing together more often. So, we're doing two things. We're going down that path with great commitment and conviction, and at the same time, for the reasons I stated earlier, Rich, we're focused on what we can control, and the tour continues to get stronger and stronger.
Saudi involvement, to those fans who struggle to reconcile that relationship for the reasons you were articulating prior to 2023, you would say what, Jay?
I'd say, listen, I'd say for me personally, my thinking as the leader of this organization has evolved and has evolved over time. I have taken 2 visits to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I've spent considerable time with Yasser and members of the Public Investment Fund. And having spent time in Saudi Arabia, I've come to better understand its culture, and I've also come to understand that it's a country that is looking to become more progressive, and more involved in a sustainable way, in an inspiring way in the global economy. And you also, Rich, have to look at the fact that if you look at their investments in sport, you look at it in entertainment, you look at it in gaming, their investment portfolio is much broader than the game of golf. It's across the industry of sport, and we're trying to find an outcome that we think ultimately is going to best serve the PGA Tour and our fans.
Bryson DeChambeau said this morning that LIV is not going anywhere. So what's the appetite for having LIV in some form continue to exist under the PGA Tour umbrella?
Listen, I think that when you look at the PGA Tour umbrella at this point, I'm only going to speak. I've said what I'm going to say as it relates to where we are in our discussions. A lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions, but again, if you look at the PGA Tour and the strength of the PGA Tour, it's not surprising to anybody that this is the place that they want to play. It's the greatest tour in the world. It's a tour that has a really strong alliance with the DP World Tour. It's a tour that continues to listen and evolve and create the most competitive platform in the world.
Agree.
And we're excited about that.
Jay, if there's resentment from some players towards bringing those guys back from LIV, how do you handle that?
Listen, I think Adam Scott said it so well last week. I think that, as he said, we're not gonna, everybody has the right is entitled to their own opinion. If we are able to accomplish that, then we're gonna do that in concert with our player directors. So the decisions that we're making have direct player involvement and ultimately have to be accepted and approved by our players and by our board.
Doesn't mean everybody's going to be happy.
No, it doesn't. Listen, I'm pretty familiar with that. That's the nature of this.
What do fans tell you about pace of play?
Listen, we hear fans, and we're listening and we're responding. I think what they say ultimately is through the broadcast that they want to see more golf shots. And ultimately, they want to see players playing faster. So, coming out of our Player Advisory Council meeting last night, we're going to between the Masters and the PGA Championship, test distant measuring devices on the PGA Tour. We are going to test on the Korn Ferry Tour the system in place and look to move up the application of stroke penalties, test that on the Korn Ferry Tour. And I think you're going to see this organization, with the support of our players, share more statistics about pace of play in the public realm.
How does an inherently slower sport like golf thrive in a short attention span society? It's something that every commissioner's thinking about.
Listen, I think we're thriving in a shorter attention society, and I think we've put the foundational blocks in place to be able to respond to what is a changing media and consumption world. And so we have PGA Tour Studios, which was a significant investment we've made in the future of being able to deliver content to our fans in the manner that they want to see it. Ultimately, showing more golf shots with the context of the meaning of what those golf shots mean, and looking at the way our players respond on Sunday after winning a tournament and the emotion, the raw emotion that comes out, I think that ultimately is the arbiter that leads to, continued fandom. And let me just finish. I would just say that we're going to make improvements as it relates to speed of play. But you have to look at the week of the Farmers Insurance Open where we play in threes. We played in 5 hours and 20 minutes average time. Then we come back with the Genesis playing in twos. We play in 3 hours and 55-minute times. So you have to look at average time of the round, average time in a round, average time taken per shot, and you've really got to get into the finer details of everything that contributes to it in order to address it, and that's what we're committed to doing.
It's not easy to manage. I have enormous respect for the Joe Highsmiths and the Brian Campbells, and everybody else who's trying to win tournaments out here. To do what Highsmith did, I think we all know if you play the game, is not easy, 64-64. So I want to underline that enormous respect. And how do you address, I hear this from my buddies. They tune in, and I don't know a name on that leaderboard. So what's the response there?
My response is that if you look at the way fans are responding and tuning in, and you look at our full field events, they are responding. And what happened last week and what happened the week before with Joe and with Brian is those events gave them an opportunity to not only win on the PGA Tour, but be able to be in this field this week competing against the best players in the world. And, there's a balance that we are striking as it relates to giving the fans what they want, which is the best players on the PGA Tour competing together more often, with the platform that creates the stars of the future. So that's what happens. That's what's happened the last 2 weeks, and that's ultimately what opportunity Joe and Brian have and all the players have on the PGA Tour.
I think Brandel and Rolf agree with me. We think your Pathways programs, DP World Tour to the PGA Tour, college golf with PGA Tour University to the PGA Tour, has been an overwhelming success. Yep. How do you assess it?
I think you just assessed it. You go back to the formation of PGA Tour U, and I look at, Alex Baldwin as the leader of the Korn Ferry Tour and leader of our Pathways initiative, to be able to go to the college coaches and work within the college system and provide that pathway direct to the PGA Tour or direct to the Korn Ferry Tour, to make the adjustments that we've made that resulted in PGA Tour Accelerated, to have Ludwig, to have Gordon, to have Luke, to have Jackson Coyven competing this week. This game is getting younger, it's getting more athletic, it's and there's exceptionalism that's going to continue to grow on that front. And these players, they're not only getting an opportunity, they're performing at a very high level. And to your point, we've made the alliance that we have with Guy Kinnings and the DP World Tour, is an alliance in its truest form. And to have 10 players competing on the DP World Tour, to have access to the PGA Tour, look at the performance. They're performing very, very well out here, and the Korn Ferry Tour itself. So listen, Pathways have been a huge part of the PGA Tour, and around any player today that wants to make it here has an opportunity, wherever you are in the world, to get here. And that's something that we've invested in and will continue to invest in.
Yeah, that's crucial, Jay. And last thing, I remember what sage tour player Paul Goydos once said to me at Greenbrier. He came up and said, "You guys are always talking about the field at events like this. Let me tell you something. There are a lot of major champions in this field.
Absolutely.
They just haven't won them yet, but they will." So that's Highsmith, and that's maybe Campbell down the road.
Well, I think that goes back to our earlier conversation, and that's exactly right. And, where are we going to be 2 years from now? And who's going to be in this field? And what are their stories? The fact of the matter is that they're somewhere in our pathway system right now. And I'm excited to see the continued talent regeneration. And I'll finish with a quote. When you talk about the business of the PGA Tour, the tour itself, Arnold, Jack, Gary, came together, and they're the foundation of the PGA Tour. And Arnold Palmer famously said, the road to success is always under construction. I mean, that's the way that, we all look at the PGA Tour, and that's the way we're going to continue to look at it. And I hope fans enjoy an awesome Arnold Palmer Invitational presented by MasterCard.
Yes, and the Players next week, that's the PGA Tour's flagship event. Keep the hard hat on, Jay. We really appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, Rich. Thanks
you.
for the time. Yep.
Commissioner Monahan. PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan